Hello, and welcome to Talking About People with your host, Alexander Reed. That's me. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Sami Bell. Sami Bell is the founder and author of S.U.R.E Parenting, Building Blocks to Create Their Best Childhood. Sami is an incredible coach who focuses on helping parents develop a deeper level of empathy and understanding for their children so that they can build a secure attachment, helping their children achieve the highest level of success. Sami has worked with people all over the world and is now here on this podcast to talk with us about, well, I don't know, people. So Sami, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Oh, Sami, you focus primarily on working with parents. How did you get started with that?
Like many
I love that
stories.
reaction. That was awesome.
So you
That
know,
was evil or funny.
my family had some patterns that I really didn't want to carry forward into my own home. And in my mind, that was going to be simple. It was like, yeah, just don't do that. It's not simple. So I learned that once I had children. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm losing in the same way that my family did. And I knew that I needed to fundamentally rewire my brain in order to show up differently. And that required me to take a really bold look at my past and, not with the shame and the judgment and the blame and pointing fingers, but with an objective, this was damaging to me. This was helpful to me. This I'm going to take and yes, thank you very much. And this I'm going to choose to replace with something else. And that process was painful and scary, and beautiful. And it led our family to have really good relationships between the five of us. And my friends around me would be like, you're kind of doing this different, this whole parenting thing. Like, what are you doing? This is how your toddler's acting, and you're not like freaking out at him. Explain. There was a lot of confusion, a little bit of judgment, a little bit of like, you've lost your mind, or, you're really going to regret that in a few years. And I naturally would just share things that I had studied and things that I had learned, and people wanted to hear it. So I started with just close friends, and a friend of mine was a business coach, and she was like, you know that you're a coach too, right? I was like, no, not me. I'm a mom. And she's like, right, so am I. I was like, crap. So she strongly encouraged me to own what I was already doing. And I took the leap. I decided to start offering services and classes, and it took off. And that was 7 years ago. So it's been amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. One of the things that you talked about, and I think it was very profound, and I want to just focus in on that because I want to dive into this. You said that you were able to look at how I recall you looked at how your parents raised you.
Mm-hmm.
And what was good and what was bad without judging it. And it's interesting because you've helped me with that process. You've helped me look at that. And it's like, to be able to go, this thing that happened to me was not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And simultaneously holding, they were doing the best they can and with the resources they have. Like, how do you and I've had this discussion, but I want to have a little bit deeper of a conversation, because it's like, how do you get to the point where you go, there is a difference between holding and resenting my parents for what they did to me versus knowing how I want to show up going forward and what I need to do to be able to shift that. Does that make sense, the question?
Absolutely. So one thing I would say is that honestly, I do think you have to allow yourself to feel a little bit of the yucky stuff. Like, I'm pissed. This is not fair. How dare you? Why would you do this to me? What is wrong with you? Like, all of those things come up. And if we just try to pretend they're not there and ignore them and push them down, then they're just going to keep coming up louder and kind of take over. So I want to give people an opportunity to express that safely. Maybe black journaling, maybe scribbling, maybe, axe throwing, whatever it is. Like, allow those things to come up. They are your body's way of saying, oh, this doesn't feel aligned. Awesome. Like, let's let that out instead of holding on to it. The second thing I want to say is that when we're holding really, really tightly to those beliefs, they're like an anchor. I'm thinking Christmas Carol, like dragging the chains by your foot kind of thing. And it really stops you from being able to go forward. So one very, 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 very important distinction is that by accepting what is, that does not mean it is acceptable behavior. I'm not okay with these behaviors. I also can't change them. They're done, they happened. So where I have all of my power is in going forward. I can look at it and go, yeah, nope, X-nay on the eatings bay. Okay. But I can do different. That's where my power is. I don't have a whole lot of power in the past because it already happened. I can do inner child things about the past, which is super powerful, but I can't literally like erase the things that existed. And also at some point, a lot of us get to a place where we wouldn't. Like we are here now, we're doing the things that we're doing now, we're impacting lives now. So by some cosmic combination, that was part of the journey and part of the story. And it takes time. It's okay to be where you are at in that place, but know that there's a place in the future where you're like, yeah, that's part of the story. And when you can create a cohesive narrative about your past, beginning, middle, end, and accept it, you actually are free to create your future.
It's funny, like as you're talking about that, the image that pops in my head, just because I've got a warped mind, is the scene that, like, one of the ending scenes. So spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Inside Out, this is a spoiler alert because I will talk about the ending. But at the end, toward the end of the movie, so if you don't want to hear it, tune out, and then come right back because it'll only be short. So it's very short, but it's a kids movie, so you already know how it ends because it's a kids movie. Anyway, so this movie is about emotions, right? And it's like it plays the memory of sad.
Mm-hmm.
And then because she was sad, all of these people came to cheer her up, which then created a happy memory, which then created one of her whole like personality profile, like personality islands, because the team was there for her. And it's like it led to this piece. And so there's this concept. It's like the thing happened, which isn't necessarily ideal. And at some point there is some lesson, there's something to learn, and you'll go through it. And yeah, there is a plus and a minus in everything that happens. There is always a good and a bad. Most people, and this is why I love you as a coach. So Sami coaches me. She's helped me tremendously with my daughter, with my life, even with my business, just in the way that I think and the way that I operate. And one of the things is it's not about focusing on the positive. It's not about diving into the negative. It's accepting that there's two sides to the coin and they both exist, and just being okay with the fact that they're both there.
Yeah. That's a very great summary. That's exactly it. It's like it's both. It's both. And I've heard some stories in my work, and it's really hard sometimes to find the positive. And there's some folks that, you know, when I start with them, it's all negative and that's all they have to talk about. And I think I look at that as a child. You know, I know I'm talking to an adult, but I really look at their child, their inner child, and think this poor kid has not had an opportunity to express anything that they have thought or felt for decades. Let it out. Let it out. And we spend a little time in that. And then we get to move to the next step. And for some people, it's the complete opposite. My family was great. My childhood was great. Everything was great. Nothing is wrong, except I have an awful relationship with my kid and I need to fix it. Okay. So now we have a child who also wasn't allowed to express anything, but who chose a different path. Instead of like, now I'm going to express it all the time and only that, I'm going to say nothing then. It's a little bit different. And so it really helps them to have that neutrality. We're not going to call your parents bad guys. That's not necessary. We're going to look objectively and say, is this something that I would choose to repeat today for myself? Like, would I like, yeah, do this again with me? No? Okay, then that's probably one of the things we're going to put in the no category. We don't have to say they're bad guys, but this specific behavior might go in the no category. And it allows them to look at their childhood in a safer way.
Well, one of the things I love about that, like the idea, the concept of what could I have done differently?
Yeah.
The answer is nothing.
Yeah.
You can't have done anything differently because it's done.
Yeah.
What can I do differently next time? What am I going to put in place? What am I going to learn from this? How am I going to handle this? You can't actually, that is one of the questions that a lot of people ask, that you with your clients are very specific. It's like, don't ask what you could have done differently. Ask, what can I do differently in the next time? Like,
Yeah.
you couldn't have
And the
done
thing
anything.
with parenting is there's always going to be a next time.
There's
They give
always
us
a next
so
time.
many
We just talked
opportunities.
about that with wipes. We talked about that. You buy this big box of Costco wipes with like 1,000 wipes, and you get to the end of the box. You're like, I'm never going to get to the end of the box. And you're like, I have wiped my kid's butt 1,000 times, and it's only been a month. What the fuck? Like, you. There's always another time to deal with their stuff.
Yeah. And ours, because they are little mirrors.
No, not at all.
It's one of the gifts that children have to give us if we let them. They will show up as a mirror of all of the little pieces that we have left to heal. And they'll trigger the shit out of us.
They'll also show you all of those moments. That's the other thing. That's one of the things you taught me, is they also show you all of those moments to bring you back to who you were.
Yeah. Oh God, it's my favorite thing about kids. That's how I got into education, was like, these kids are still in the stage of awe and wonder and passion and excitement. And they live so authentically in the moment. And it's like, well, yesterday, mom yelled at me, but like today we're baking cookies. So I literally couldn't care less. And they're just like, they've moved on, and they're so like genuinely like, they're like, yes, let's do the thing together. And it's such a graceful relationship to practice vulnerability and apologizing and ownership. Like, I don't know that exists anywhere else than with your children. They want to forgive you. They want to reconnect and be secure with you and move on. Like, it's brilliant. It is such a delightful design. And we can use that relationship to both of our benefits, to the kids' benefit and our own, the whole 18 years they live with us, or plus, if we know how to repair, if we learn how to repair, because most of us didn't get much repair from our parents. And the coolest thing about repair is there's not actually a time limit on it. I have seen parents repair with their 40-year-old children. Like, I have a client right now whose mother started researching stuff because I'm her daughter's coach. She's like, she's doing all this research. I better do some research. I don't know what's going on with my kid here. And she was learning things and going, oh. And she'd call my client, her daughter, and be like, hey, I just realized that was kind of not great. And she's like, oh, you're like owning that. That's different. And she's like, yeah, I'm really sorry. I didn't know. And now that I do, like, I just want you to know, I acknowledge that. Like, you are right. That not great. I would not do that again if I could do it again today. And that is powerful. I have this client who just cries in like relief, like her whole body is like releasing this tension that she's been holding for 37 years. Like, it's incredible. So repair is quite possibly the favorite thing that I do in my work.
So you, in your introduction, we talked about secure attachment. You just mentioned they want to be secure. I know what that is, but
yeah,
not all my listeners do. What does secure attachment mean? What is that?
So we're born with literally two needs: safety and attachment. And either one of those can kill us if we don't get it met. It sounds dramatic, but it actually is that impactful. And there's sad stories that have proven it. But we are so driven to find a person to attach to, that we can co-regulate with, that we can be safe around, that we can join energy fields with and feel like, I belong here. Okay. And so Dan Siegel and Tina Bryson wrote The Power of Showing Up, and they have distilled this very, very complex topic down to 4 things, which I think is awesome: safe, seen, heard, you want to be heard as well, soothed, and secure. And it is the simplest 4S model to just go back in and go, okay, is this situation creating security or deteriorating security? Does my child feel safe? Do they feel like I see them and I hear them and I know who they are and what they're trying to accomplish here? Am I giving them the benefit of the doubt? Am I asking questions? Am I getting curious? Do they feel soothed? Am I making this worse? Or am I making it better? And it's interesting because soothed is not the same thing as making their feelings go away. It doesn't mean make them stop crying. Crying is healing, very healing. So if they're really disappointed because their ice cream fell on the concrete, it's fine, I'll just buy you another one. You might think that's soothing, but it's erasing that experience. It's taking away this opportunity to learn how disappointment feels. You might get to buying another ice cream. That's fine. But take a moment, pause, and create a little safe container for them to feel, oh, that sucks. It does suck. I would be really disappointed too. Let them feel. And then once they've felt and they go up and they go down, they're learning how to regulate by co-regulating with you thousands of times. Then what could we do now? What's a solution to this problem? Well, could we get another one? Sure, baby, let's get another one. It's just, I mean, sometimes we're talking 30-second difference, but it's profoundly different in the experience of that child. And then all of that together creates security. So.
Thank you. So
you're welcome.
So in order to create a secure attachment, the way that you described it to me that really resonated was it's like, there's this place that like I can go out and venture into the world, into the wild, because I know that I have a place to come back to that's safe, that is my refuge. So if I have that, I can take risks, I can learn, I can grow, I can get outside my comfort zone, because I know that if something happens, that I have somebody, some place, some energy, something to come back to.
Right.
And that imagery has stuck in my head.
We're home base. We are, and it's such a profound thing to be a safe place for another person, for them to bring you their fears and their hurts, and for you to be able to not put them on. You're not taking them away, but you're acknowledging that their life experience, their human experience is just as valid as your own. They have real feelings too. And the simplification that I created was, I believe you and I believe in you. And then you had a version of that with your daughter, which was, you've got this and I've got you. And I was like, like my little inner child needed my daddy to say that. Like I had this like very like strong reaction to it, because it was like, like it's the same, but it's different, right? It's like, I'm right here. And it's an interesting distinction between mother energy and father energy. Father energy is that like strong support. It's that foundation. It's firm and it's solid and it's a mountain and you can't shake it. I'm always going to have you. I've got your back. And mother is that like warm, welcoming, nurturing, just like ooey gooey, and you need both, right? You need both of those actually. And
it's
so
funny you should say that. The image that got in my head was this like, I believe you, I believe in you. And then it's like, yeah, come on, let's go.
Yeah.
Like it's, and I'll be here when you come back. And it's like this, it's the dynamic between the two.
I love it. It's such a beautiful balance. And so when I'm, at a pain point, so to say, with my kids, these are my fallbacks. Does my kid feel safe right now? And it's, again, it's that objective observation. It's not a judgment thing. Well, they should feel safe. I didn't hit them. Should is not relevant right now. Do they feel safe? And funny example, my 3-year-old was climbing on the side of the armchair and my hair was there. So she like did this like with her body and it yanked my hair. And rather than yell, in my mind, I am very consciously not yelling. I was like, grrr. It scared the heck out of her. She ran out of the room and I'm like, that was weird. She comes back in like 2 seconds, 2 minutes, maybe, if that. And she was like, I was like, did that scare you? Ah. It's like, I'm so sorry. I was trying not to yell and I thought that would be a better idea. And I don't think it was. No. And I was like, can I hug you? Yeah. And so she came and sat with me and cried a little bit and she felt safe again. And I could judge that and be like, you're being ridiculous. I didn't touch you. I didn't even yell at you. Like, what is your problem? But it does not help her to feel safe. It doesn't matter. It's not a judgment of me that her body had a reaction. And as I went through that, I remember reading a study about how growling at children actually creates a primal fear response. I didn't think about that in the moment. So like, not only is it valid just because it is what she felt, but it's like literally scientifically provenly valid. So it was like triple stacked to just give her space to feel and then be the safe person that she could express that to. She can express to me, hey, you did a thing that I didn't like. I hear you. And I will choose to do something different next time.
You see, and I want to point out to all of the leaders that are listening, what she just said applies to the people that you're working with and that you're listening to. Like, this is one of the reasons why I have gotten so much value from my parenting coaching, is because I've literally taken it and I've used it and integrated it into all of my business models because it's essential. I'd tweak it a little bit. But when you have someone who comes to you and they go, what you said offended me, or what you said was a problem, or you did this wrong, or I can't believe that you would say this, or I just, you're not paying me enough money, like whatever reality they come to you with, their reality is their reality. And you, by simply going, okay, let's get you back to what Sammy's calling regulated, let's get you back into a regulated state so that we can have a conversation. Like, in the moment when they're in their stuff, just like a kid, like if you go and you're like, this kid is like, oh, and you're like, whoa, like it doesn't help them. So you going like, this person comes to you and it's like, yeah, but you're just not paying me enough. And you try and do all your logic and reason. They're the 3 to 7-year-old kid who's triggered because of something that happened when they were a child. Like that, like there's something going on. They're no longer present. You're now dealing with a kid.
Yeah, they're not listening to me.
And I've seen them do that. Oh my God. I have literally watched, they just don't understand. And I'm like, oh my God, I saw that yesterday. That look, that expression, I got that from my daughter. She's 3. Good job. Welcome back. But a lot of these concepts, like they're so applicable because as you understand why you as an adult do what you do, like learning how to parent actually goes, okay, that explains why I do this. So now how do I want to do this differently? And how do I help my kid do that differently? But then you start to see it. That's the thing about the education with you, is then you see it everywhere.
I know. Everywhere. Walmart,
Everywhere.
Starbucks.
Oh. So is there hope for people who have completely messed up their kids? I'm just asking.
There's always
I don't know why I'm curious. I'm just hoping, is there any chance?
You're so funny. Your daughter is fantastic and you are an amazing dad. And yes, there is hope. I think that sometimes we shy away from parenting coaches because we're like, you're just going to tell me everything I'm doing wrong. Screw you. I don't want to hear it. Fair. Nobody wants to be sit there lectured at and told everything they're doing wrong. That's not really my style. I will tell you, okay, so this is your current strategy. These are the positive outcomes and the negative outcomes. Do you want to keep this strategy or change it? And there are certain strategies that like don't align with my work. And so you can work with somebody else. But by and large, there's a huge amount of family distinction that comes in. In our family, we clean our rooms every Saturday. Okay. That's not my family by a long shot. My family, we do it different. We do family work. So we all are like, this room needs help. Everybody, let's take it on. But that doesn't mean that you can't do your things your way. It means you become aware of a deeper meaning to each decision that you're making. So you're making it consciously. And within that, you will add in things like repair, things like empathy, acknowledging your child's experience. I had a client whose kids' chore, they hated that chore, like despised the chore. And there was, the question became, why does it matter so much to you? Like, I understand why it matters so much to the kid. Why does it matter so much to you that this be the thing? Well, I don't know, because I said so. Let's explore it a little. Let's look at it. Like, if the idea is learning to contribute to the family, which is a valuable idea. If the idea is helping, if the idea is responsibility, is there another way to teach those values? There's like hundreds, right? There's lots and lots and lots of chores. So what if we met them where they're at and they're like, this seems to be largely aggravating to you. These are my concerns. This is what I want to accomplish as a parent. What other ideas do you have? especially because this was like a 13-year-old. They can have these conversations. The kid came up with a different chore, one that took longer, but they chose it, and it was like, well, they don't get to choose when they're an adult. Yes, they do. Actually, they really do. Like, they could hire somebody to do pooper scooper. They can hire somebody to mow their lawn. They can choose whether or not they clean their toilet. It's gross, but they can, And so what we're teaching them is to choose to contribute, to choose to look at their strengths and their skill sets and figure out, how do I apply this to my life in a way that benefits myself and the other people around me the most? That's a valuable skill. And we let go of the ego part. I said so. Okay. You have control over that, don't you? You can say differently. So anyways, that was a slight tangent, but yes, there's always hope. If there's a fight that you've been having over and over and over and over again, we look at it. We look at the elements of it. We look at how can you look at this from a different perspective, and now all of a sudden see so many more possibilities. If there's a big thing, if your kids are adults, it comes down to repair. It comes down to really listening and hearing and knowing your adult child, not assuming you know them because you knew them when they were 12, but really knowing who they are today. That is so powerful and so missing for almost all of my clients, to really truly be known by their parents. And yet it's craved by them. So you have so much power as a parent. Like, there is an inherent desire for our children to be bonded to us. Even when they're adults, even if they're not speaking to us, they still want it. They still want to see that change in you so that it's safe again for them to come back home. So yes, I don't really believe in the idea of like, it's too late, because I've seen it. I've seen it in the oldest group was an 80-year-old mother and a 60-year-old daughter that I've seen it repair. So.
Wow, that's awesome. So there are two things that you brought up that I want to discuss. One, you talked about adapting your communication to the kid. You talked about that. So I want to talk about the importance of adapting. So in communicating with people, one of the things I teach a lot is about the importance of adapting, but I want to hear about it from your perspective, from the parent perspective, but also from an interaction perspective. Why is it so important to adapt how you communicate to the child or to the other person?
Well, for children specifically, one of the biggest reasons is because we are dealing with somebody whose brain isn't fully developed yet. We think it is.
I mean, half the workforce.
Possibly. But so what happens is when our children start speaking in like full sentences and communicating relatively adult-like around, 2, 3, 4 years old, we assume like, okay, well, then they understand. That's not how brain development works. So the brain, your prefrontal cortex, the whole front part of your brain, continues to develop and grow up until 25, 26 years old. So when you're talking to a 13-year-old who you're expecting that they are going to communicate like an adult, you want them to, you're telling them to, they literally can't. Like, you have to take the lead. You have to set the stage for that to be possible. If they are triggered, they are dealing with an underdeveloped brain, a limbic brain, the emotional brain on like rapid fire growth. And so the tortoise and the hare analogy, the middle part of all of the emotions in the teenage years and adolescence takes off. It grows so fast, but the prefrontal cortex doesn't. So the hair takes off and all these emotions are triggered, and there's testosterone and there's estrogen on high alert and there's all these things happening. And then in addition, part of adolescence is lowering inhibitions, increasing impulsivity, which helps propel them out of the nest, right? But the prefrontal cortex is that tortoise, just like, we're going to get there eventually. And it does. But we need to remember that when we're talking to somebody who's just as tall or taller than us, it doesn't always mean that they are all the way developed. And we also don't control their communication. We control ours, though. All of our power then lies within how we approach that situation. So we can change the entire dynamic by how we pivot our language, the words that we use, the approach that we take, the just observing, oh, that hit wrong. What did you hear me say? Yeah, I thought so. That's not what I was saying at all. and being able in the moment to actually observe our child as a complete whole person, even if the brain is still developing, and pivot where we notice those obstacles coming up so that we are giving that conversation or that conflict even the best chance of resolving well.
That makes sense. I want to translate just a little bit because I think it's really cool, because this is something that you've taught me to do with my daughter. And then I flip it and I go into the office and I go, here's the challenge. You are working with real estate team. I'm talking to the owner of the real estate team. And he goes, I just don't understand why they don't know this. I said, because they've been in real estate for 3 months, because they haven't had 1,500 transactions to be able to build the muscle memory that you have. They're not fully, and I used the word, I said, they're not fully developed yet.
Yeah.
And they go, I'd never thought about that. I said, here's the thing, just because it's common sense for you doesn't mean that they have that intuition, that they know that. In fact, in one of the assessments that I use, there's actually a blind spot in that, like their ability to see it, they can't see it. You need to help them see it. Well, at what point will they see it? I don't know that they ever will. And right now, you as the leader have to recognize, where is this person? And that's what you're talking about. Like with the parent, it's like, where are they right now? And it's so funny because as a leader, you need to know where your people are, just like as a parent. If my dad, if my friend starts acting like a 3-year-old and I get frustrated and pissed off that they're acting like a 3-year-old, that's makes sense because they're not a 3-year-old. But then I turn around and get upset at my 3-year-old for acting like a 3-year-old. And you're like, but that's because she's 3. That's
Right.
a 3-year-old.
She's supposed to.
I'm like, wait a minute. Oh, yeah, she is. Wait a minute. So 3-year-old behavior is okay for a 3-year-old, but it's not okay for a 68-year-old or a 72 or a 14, a 25-year-old.
Right.
So,
and sometimes it is a matter of not having somebody in your life going, I won't allow that. Right. So we have these adults sometimes who are really stuck in their ways and they just do some sort of behavior that you're like, but you've never said it. And where your power lies is in controlling what you do and do not do, say, whatever. So you can say, I am not going to sit here and let you comment on my body. I know you do that every time I see you. I'm done listening to it. So we can change the topic or I can go home. Because I can choose those 2 things. I have control over that. I can't make you stop.
Have control over. Yeah.
Yeah. But I can choose to leave. And it is often gets a very childish reaction. Oh, you're too sensitive. You're a snowflake. Blah, 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 blah. Cool. You're having your feelings. I don't have to control your feelings. The offer stands that we can change the topic or I can go home. Fine. We'll talk about something else. Cool. Right. I'm not going to choose to get activated just because you're activated. I have every right to be comfortable or uncomfortable with a certain topic, and I get to decide what I talk about because it's my choice. And it's, our kids, again, give us so much practice dealing with uncomfortable feelings. And then we get to take it into, all of the other places in our life. And it's pretty powerful and you feel powerful. It's like, instead of trying to control all the things you can't control, what do I do? What can I do here? I can have this option, this option, this option. And you either choose it or you let the other person know, these are my choices. These are your choices, right? It is very interesting. One of the chapters in my book is actually leadership, because I believe that parents must be good leaders. Children need good leaders. And a leader isn't a boss. There's a difference. So when I'm talking to parents, about being a good leader, it's not about the kid. It's about the behaviors and the interactions that from the parent. Well, they need to listen to me. They're always listening to you. Whether or not they obey you is a totally different conversation. But what is your leadership style? If you're just standing there making demands, are you really seeing and knowing your child at all? Are you setting them up for success? Are you giving them the explicit tools that they need to accomplish your expectations? And those are really important questions. We have to ask those questions. And I would assume that we need to ask those questions in business too.
Oh, yes, totally. Are they getting results? So I had this conversation. Again, everything we talk about in the business world or in the parenting thing, I shift over into the business. And the business stuff, I come back, I'm like, I have this insight. You're like, yeah, that works with parents too. I mean, it's so funny because Leaders in business are just parents of big kids.
Yes.
So are they getting results? No, they're not getting results. They're not performing. I need to put them on a performance improvement plan. I need to do a course correction. I need to tell them that they're doing it wrong. I need to, threaten. I need to, like, they've given with all of these different things. And I laugh because in my head, I literally hear whatever they're saying that's coming out of their mouth. I'm like, this is how you were parented.
Yeah.
Like in my head, I'm literally listening, like this person isn't performing, and whatever comes out of their mouth, unless they've done work, is probably how, when they weren't doing the right thing, their parents helped them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to yell at you. You probably yelled at. I'm going to I'm going to punish you. I'm going to take your pay away. I'm going to do this stuff. Then you were probably punished. If I'm going to sit there and tell you how stupid you are, then I was probably degraded as a parent. Like, it's just funny because we carry those behaviors because we model our parents as leaders.
Yeah. Right. Because that was the ultimate leadership role that we saw. And we have a choice to model a different leadership role for our children. We don't lose authority by being conscious. We gain respect. Respect is not just doing whatever somebody tells you. That's not actually respect. Respect is an adoration that's so strong that you want to implement whatever that person's doing. Like, I respect you. I want to copy that. And that is not something you can force in another person. You earn it by your actions, by your behavior, by how you show up. So yes, respect is part of S.U.R.E parenting. R is for respect. But it starts with the adult or the leader being worthy of respect by showing up in this way. And does that mean that your kid is always going to be regulated, or your employees will always be regulated? Of course not. We are humans. But it means that we're going to have a foundation of respect. So when your kid pops off, they know immediately, like, that's not how we talk to each other. And they start coming back to you. Hey, I'm really sorry I said that. I didn't mean that. That was all of my anger coming out in those words. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. My 9-year-old does that. And he's probably done it for a year and a half or so. He'll come back and actually own his own crap and apologize. And it's
that's awesome.
Like adults that don't do that. Like, it is a skill that I am very, very glad he possesses, but he wouldn't if I didn't do that with him. If I wasn't able to, be frustrated and angry and irritated and then go, that didn't help. I'm going to go reconnect. I'm going to own my part of it. Still wish that you hadn't been like playing around on my computer, reading the Christmas list, but I didn't need to like freak out either. And you know what he said to me? This happened. He's like coming up and listening with my computer, and I'm like, and I realized I have a trigger because I want Christmas to be special. It was one of the few times that I could usually guarantee we'd have a good day in my home. And I have this like attachment to it going well. And so when he was ruining it, I reacted with all of this tension, and he was so bothered. Like, he was offended and shocked, and he just storms out. And I was like, So I went to talk to him, and my 9-year-old told me, I don't think Christmas is really about presents, Mom. I think it's really about being together with your family, and like the presents is like 30 minutes of it. But I think there's more to it than that. So even if I ruin my surprises, it's still going to be a good day. And then I cried like an actual baby.
Wow.
I was like, you are entirely too wise for me. Holy. Like, it was amazing. But again, that doesn't come out of nowhere. Like, that comes from some kind of modeling between his father and I, that we have value for more than just the presents, that we have value of connectedness and time together. And that was never an explicit, like, you need to value this more. It was just living and experiencing what that feels like, that he was able to translate that into his own understanding. And that's what I mean by leadership. Like, how do you show up? What is your essence in this relationship? And if it's not what you want, you have the power to change it.
That's powerful. So tell us S.U.R.E. Go through
Yeah,
S.U.R.E.
so S.U.R.E is an acronym. The on the surface is that everybody, I think, deserves to feel sure of their parenting. There's so much judgment and criticism and uncertainty out there, that my goal is to help you get to a place where you feel sure of your parenting. But the acronym is S is for self-honor, which requires you to know yourself and heal and do lots of hard things, but also have good boundaries. Also set yourself up for success. Have reasonable expectations. No human is perfect. That is a mathematical term, not a human one. Then there is U for unique, because we all have very unique brains. That's why I love the disc stuff you do, because we need to know that. We need to own that about ourselves and our kids.
I'm going to pause you. I want to
Yeah.
go back and restate that statement, because this is a quote that I think I need to pull out of this, and I need everyone to hear what you said. Perfect is a mathematical term, not a human term. I
Yes.
love that. I've never heard that, and that's awesome.
Yes.
Okay,
I
continue.
believe I did an interview a while back and a woman said that, and I was like, oh, I'm using that forever. I
Yeah.
think it was, I need to look up the name. I can see the name and I can't bring it to my vocals. But I know exactly who it is. So I'll pull it up. But anyhow, the R is for respect, respectful interactions, respectful boundaries, respectful communication. And the E is for empathic. Are we taking the time to actually consider what this world is like from the other person's perspective? And it requires, I mean, you can add in other words, right? You might be understanding, E might be egoless, like let go of the ego. We don't want that one to be in control. Is it going to pop up? Of course it is. We're human. But being conscious of it and aware of it is so, so, so valuable and important. And then altogether, it just comes back to, do I feel satisfied with my performance? Do I feel like, yeah, I'm doing all right? And it's important to understand that because we have this like attachment drive, we do not have to be perfect. We don't have to be close to perfect. You can create a secure attachment with 33% of attunement. Attunement being all of that. It's, I see you, I care about your experience, I try to understand you. Like 33%, that's like a low F, okay? Like great parents are at 50%, which is also an F. So like you do not have to be anywhere near perfect to create a feeling in another person of like, this is a pretty good relationship. I like it. It's all right. And one more little thing, secure relationships are actually built through this cycle of conflict and repair. The problem is not the conflict, it's the lack of repair. So you're not going to have any relationships that are conflict free. That's not the goal. It's fake. It's not real. Conflict could be that you disagree about where you're going for dinner. It could be a big blow up. Conflict has many different iterations, but conflict and repair is essential in a healthy relationship. So we're not telling you to like never have any conflict with your kids. We're showing you how to have conflict in a healthy way.
It's interesting. Like that is another thing that I think is vitally important for all of the leaders to understand, is that true leadership is about building the relationship with the people who follow you by choice.
Yeah.
And they choose to follow you because they trust you. And part of that trust is being human, being vulnerable, letting them know when you're not sure, when you're not confident. Like it's so funny because so many people are like, a leader needs to always have the answer. I go, I don't have the answer. People follow me because when I don't know, I say I don't know.
Yeah, you own that.
Right. And so that idea of when something goes wrong, being able to come back and go, you know what, no, I didn't do that right, and owning it and fixing it and finding a way, like that's so important in all relationships.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that's really what we want. We think maybe that we want somebody to give us the answers. What we want is somebody who's willing to honestly evaluate whether they have the answer or not, and then to be able to go, even if I don't, I know how to get an answer. Let's do it. And show us how to do that. Because it's that like teach a man to fish kind of concept. It's like, no, I don't know either. And we can learn how to find that answer together. I do that with my kids a lot.
One of the things that you said to me, I'm trying to remember, I believe you and I had this conversation. We banter about analogy, or banter is the wrong term. I've learned that that's the wrong term and I need to eliminate it from my vocabulary. Banter is not, it actually means, it means something very different than a playful discussion back and forth. That's
really
the wrong term. I actually looked up the meaning of banter because, so see, Sammy, you agree, the word's banter. We're going to banter on this back and forth.
I've always thought that's what banter was. It's
Nope,
like
not what
playful and
banter
like
is.
funny and going back and
Nope.
forth, maybe like a little fighty, but it's like not serious.
Nope, not at all. Hold on one second, because we've got the 30 seconds.
See,
And, well,
I'm learning too.
You see, here's the thing is that I am glad because now we are on this Zoom call, both agreeing that banter just means to playfully discuss, but that is
Mhm.
not what banter means. Banter, when I look it up, to speak, let's see, banter. When I look up banter, dictionary definition, come on, let's go dictionary.
Let's go dictionary. Let's go.
So a playful and friendly exchange, teasing remarks, which is kind of, but let's hop on the phone and let's banter about this. Like banter for me has always been used as a discussion. Like there's
Yeah,
a
it's
little
not
bit
like
of playfulness, but
teasing.
it's just, it's not a teasing. It's not
Yeah,
a, like for me, like we're having a banter. It's a discussion. It's a back and forth. It's like, it's
right.
not a, yeah. So banter
I
is the wrong term.
I say we submit a new definition because people do that with words all the time. So I'm now changing the definition of banter to include our
We'll go
definition.
back to, we'll include that. Okay.
Okay.
So the idea of teach a man to fish, we talk and discuss all of these different analogies and look at them from different meanings and stuff. And it's like you can teach a man to fish, you can give a man a fish, or you can teach a man to fish, right?
Mhm.
No. Give the man a fish. It's a lot easier to teach a man to fish when he's not starving.
Right. It's
Then
both.
so right, but that's the co-regulation piece that you're talking about. That's
Yeah.
like that's the analogy. It's like your kid's freaking out. So be the calm. You can't just here, let me teach you how to. It's like, no. First start by giving them the fish.
Yeah. God, I love that.
Then teach them how to fish.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because we will say that. We'll say as parents, like, well, they need to learn how to get control of their emotions. Like, do you have control of your emotions right now?
Doesn't feel like it.
Right. And so
Yeah.
what, we become the anchor in their storm. We are able to be that person that's like, this feels like a complete onslaught to your nervous system, and I believe you. And I happen to know that we're going to get through this. You might not know that yet because you haven't experienced this intensity before, but I have. So I know we're going to get through this, and I
So
don't
what you
need
do
to freak
though
out.
is you have that conversation.
This
You
is
have that
internal.
conversation with your,
This is
oh,
inside the
no.
parent.
You have that conversation with yourself though.
Yeah.
Not just internal about your kids. You as the kid, when you're having that
Mhm.
emotional response, having that conversation with that kid.
Yeah, that's the reparenting part. It's like,
Talk to me about that.
oh, I hear you. So when you talked earlier about how the leader is dealing with an employee who's now become a 3 or a 7-year-old. And so we all do that. Every person has multiples inside of them, and it sounds super weird, and that's fine. But you are not just your age. You are also a 3-year-old and also a 7-year-old and also a 12-year-old. And every age that you have ever been exists within you. And if there was a time during that period that you were overwhelmed by emotion, but you did not have the resources or support to process it, you created sort of this little pocket of emotions that just your body, your psyche just kind of put it in a little box. And it was like, oh, well, this is overwhelming, so we're going to put it here. But it's just floating around. It's untethered. So then all of a sudden it gets bumped like those like TNT boxes in Crash Bandicoot and goes boom. And you are now 3 years old. You are screaming and freaking out and stomping your feet, and you are overwhelmed by not just whatever's in front of you, but also whatever it triggered, whatever came up from the past. And the plus side is you get to regulate whatever's happening now and help heal whatever happened in the past. The downside is in that exact moment, you are dealing with the brain capacity of a 3-year-old. So when I do inner child work, I help people to differentiate their parts so that they can pull in the healing energy, the inner healer, to reparent and address that inner 3-year-old. That 3-year-old's still there. They're fully engaged in. So, but you also have this other higher part that is able to go, okay, I hear you. Maybe at that point in time, nobody could, but I do now. I hear you. This is super overwhelming. I see you. I am with you in this. We're going to get through this. You don't know that yet. You think you're going to die. Like, this is awful. I believe you. And I believe in you. We're going to get through this very, very intense feeling. And I'm going to be right here. I know I'm here. And so it's interesting talking to you. I take my hand. When I'm doing it with myself, it's my chest. But when I'm talking to you, it's my hand. That's very interesting to me. Because you're the one that told me to look at my hand. You're the one that had told me that many, many moons ago. So I don't know if that was just like a subconscious thing or what that was, or if your inner child's in your hand. But anyways, so I connect to my inner child, and I do that. I mother or parent or heal that inner child by giving them what they couldn't receive at that point in time. And that is that conversation. Sometimes they're not ready to hear. One thing to know about humans is that when we are particularly activated, our language center doesn't work very well, and children at all. So it might not be words. It might literally be just patting, rocking. I had a client that was very, very ashamed that she would rock when she was super triggered. I'm like, that is your innate wisdom of human biology that you didn't even know you had. Like rocking, it represents being in the womb. It is the most soothing sensation. We need it.
Why I love hammocks.
Yes. Yes. It's encompassing and just safe and cozy, and you're swaying. There's no pressure. It's all even and equal. It's very womb-like. And it can be those things. It can just be shh, and shh doesn't mean stop feeling. It is a calming sound. It's not a demand. It's a sound. It's an ocean sound. It's a water sound. It's even a blood rushing sound, like back to the womb idea. Yep. Yeah. If you're going to use words against, right. Mother Earth. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. Whatever that is, what is it? In my class, we have a page with a bunch of inner healer images and phrases, and people will read through them, and one of them will be like a gut punch. They're just like, oh my God, that's the thing. Like, I never heard that, or I've been craving hearing that. And that's the thing you repeat, right?
You said your class, you have a workshop coming up, yes?
Yes, I have a workshop in January, the Friday the 27th. We are going to meet on Zoom. We'll do the class. There's a workbook that comes with it that I'll email to you ahead of time. And we'll go through those pages and go through the inner child pieces that allow you to then take that information and go home with it and practice. Lots of opportunities for practice, and know what to do instead of just being like, I am so triggered and I hate everything. And that externalizing explosion. We're able to go, oh, here's the thing. It's coming up. Time to work on this. And we will do the class, and then that will be recorded, and then we'll stop the recording and do Q&A so you can get deeper and more personal without it being recorded for everyone.
Awesome. And so if people want to find out about the inner child work class, where do they go? My
website is sureparenting.com. And if you do sureparenting.com/inner-child, that's the landing page for the workshop.
Perfect. And if people want to follow you, find you, connect with you, if they want to be able to get to know you better or find out more about how to work with you, especially if they're a parent or a leader looking for some of these skills, how do they do that? I'm everywhere. So at S.U.R.E Parenting on Facebook or Instagram, technically Twitter, but I don't use Twitter, just so you know. I have a YouTube channel, so YouTube/C/S.U.R.E Parenting. Or just search S.U.R.E Parenting. I have a website, sureparenting.com, which has all these links, so you don't have to remember them. I have a Facebook group that is a free group with a lot of free content, empowering parents to uplift kids. Very much a parenting focus there. So just so you know what you're getting into. I have a podcast also called S.U.R.E Parenting. I have this idea that S.U.R.E Parenting may be your thing. I don't know why. It kind of feels like that. But all of the links are on the website. So if you're like, that was a lot, just go there and scroll down on the first page, and there's like a link to every single thing. So I've got people who are like, I'm really struggling. A lot of my clients are parents who are pushing themselves, they're working. So they're not just managing the real estate team or manage their mortgage team or their insurance team, because those are like the primary industries I'm working with right now. But they're also dealing with stress at home, because now that I'm putting all this time and energy at work, I'm not home. I don't know how to be at home. I don't know how to put the time. Like, that's one of the things, finding that balance and figuring out how to do that. If I have parents who are going, I don't even know if I can work with you, if this is the right fit, if this is what I'm doing.
Right.
Is there a way for them, like, can we get them a call, something to be able to say, is this a fit? What can I do? And which of these, the course or the group coaching or
Right.
the website or the Facebook, what's the right fit for me? Because that's one of the things
Absolutely.
that I think.
I think that's super valid. I'm glad you brought that up because what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another. That's why the you means unique, because we're literally all different. And there's lots of options we haven't even talked about. So go to bit.ly/call Sami, SAMI. Super easy. And you get a free call and you can tell me about your life. Tell me what's going on for your situation and what needs to change. You are aware of that far more than I am, right? So you tell me what it is that you're dealing with, what your goal is, and then I can tell you what would be the right fit, whether that's working one-on-one. Voxer is often actually the preferred method for a lot of people who are really, really, really busy because there's no time constraint. You get to pick up your phone and send me a message at 5:30 in the morning on your way to a listing. And then when I get to it at 7 o'clock, I get to respond to it. And then when you have your next break at 11:30, you listen to it and we go back and forth all day, every day if we need to. But you're able to talk about it when it's on your mind, when it's fresh, and then you process and think and integrate. And then you come back and go, okay, this part still is stuck. Cool, let's work on that then. So it's a very organic, flowing with your schedule kind of approach that the people that currently are using Voxer are very, very, very busy professionals. They do not want to like come and sit for an hour every week at a specific time. Their life isn't like that. So we have another option.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, Sammy, thank you so much. Sammy has drastically changed the way that I've raised my daughter, and she has helped me change a lot of different aspects of my life, how I see myself, how I interact with myself. And the thing that I think I'm most proud of in my life is when I look at my daughter and I say, who's the best? She goes, me best, daddy. And I'm like, keep that your whole life. And a lot of that has to do because I've been able to install stop points because of a lot of the conversations that we've had. So I want to thank you for the work that you've done with me, and thank you for being on today. Guys, remember, I say this every podcast. I say this pretty much every video because it's kind of cool. But reality isn't fact. Reality isn't real. Reality is what you make it. Make it a great day. And Sami, thank you so much for being on and joining us today.
Thank you so much, Alex.
Bye for now, everybody.